You're not dancing enough. Okay.
I'm a bobber from way back.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Cut the Shit, Cue the Genius. Michelle Bruno, Liz Caruso, and myself, Dahlia El-Gazar, we welcome you with open arms on this wonderful Thursday, right between the lunar eclipse and a solar eclipse, and we're in Mercury retrograde. I kid you not. But we will get through this, won't we, Bruno?
I don't know. I don't think about it. I got to focus on like what's happening in front of me. I can't think about like next week or tomorrow. It's just like, I need my full energy and concentration power.
Hey, be in the now and be
Yeah.
in the today. That's exactly what you should do every single day. And welcome to all the geniuses and our usuals, as well as Shapiro with espresso in hand, of course. And we are ready for this session. I am. I know that I springed it, but like I've been having a lot of chats and conversations lately, Bruno, where people are all over the effing place with strategy and budget. And it made me think, it's like a chicken or egg, which comes first. I know that people like really go after putting a strategy together and a budget, and then all of a sudden it's a shit show. No pun intended.
Yeah.
There's everything in the mix. There's unknown factors. There's hidden fees. There's all these surprises that come up. And it made me think, okay, what do you do? Like, what do we do as professionals where all of a sudden your strategy is coming apart because you don't have the budget for it, or your budget wasn't really realistic in the first place?
Yeah.
So, thoughts?
Well, I think this discussion is going to dovetail with our recent discussion on mental illness, because, as a former planner, this kind of stuff just drives me crazy. I'm going to say, first of all, I weigh in on the side of strategy comes first.
Strategy comes first.
There's no way around it. Strategy has to be, you have to have like, why am I doing this? Sort of somewhat set in stone, not really, but at least there in order for everything else to be, relevant. I think the budget, you can always pump it up or dial it back or whatever, but the strategy has to be kind of solid in order for there to be a raison d'etre for doing anything, for buying anything, for having an event. So that's where I'm starting.
I agree with you. Strategy does come first. It's always easier to put like this, a strategy together, which is also part of the vision, or the vision's embedded in the strategy, and play with new ideas and say, okay, I'm going to do this and bring in new technology, for example, or bring new experiences or something brand new, as well as something bigger than what you did before. Because like any strategy should be where you are elevating what you have done before.
Yeah.
But a lot of times when you do that, or like what I'm seeing right now, is people have these lofty strategies, whether it's an event they're putting together and it has to be better than the one they did before, or whether it is a marketing strategy that they're putting together, a go-to market, a strategy. Or, for example, they have all these events that they're going to be participating in, and the budget is exactly the same as either a couple of years ago or last year, or even less. And I've been talking to people where they're like, our C-suite wants us to bring in more revenue. Therefore, the budget stays the same. So
Mhm.
how is that possible? Like, what do we do with that conversation?
So I think the aforementioned creativity isn't all absorbed by just figuring out how to cut or, move things around. I think there is a level of real creativity required to sell the dream, to say to the C-suite, okay, this is what you want, but look at it this way. Or, can we sort of, change around the strategy so you get kind of what you want, but let's reframe it or think about it in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
I just said a Dahliaism. Okay, let's think about it in a different way. That is straight out of Dahlia's brain. Oh my God, Dahlia, I'm turning into Dahlia. Anyway, I think, if you've got any kind of idea, you have to sell it first. And then I think, because you even mentioned before we went on air, like, we have clients that, okay, they didn't have a budget for one thing that we thought was really important, but they have a budget for something that they really, really want that we think is shite because it doesn't achieve any kind of goal. And eventually it didn't really even work when they tried
Mm-hmm.
it, right? So I just think planners might have to be better at reframing why they're spending something, what they're spending it on, and get the C-suite's attention talking the language that they understand.
So we're back at this point where we are asking basically our planners to be salespeople, to
Yeah.
be persuaders,
Mm-hmm.
to be everything that they really don't want to be. That's one thing.
Yeah.
You're what we're saying is, you're taking your expertise and then you're trying to, again, over and over again, almost
Mhm.
sell what you are bringing to the table, what you think is going to work because you put your blood, sweat, tears, and wine into knowing what your audience and your stakeholders want. And you're here spending most of your mental and creative time trying to convince a group of people internally
Mhm.
to say, run with it. We trust you. May the force be with you, and have at it.
But isn't that how it works in the real world? Like those that are more creative in selling an idea get the funding. I mean, Silicon Valley was built on tech bros being able to go in there and say, picture this, and they had nothing built, and all they had was a fantastical idea on paper. Let's call that sort of the strategy. And then people came forward with the cash. Don't you agree? They have to, I mean, planners and anyone wanting money have got to be a little bit more, uh, broaden their horizons and be able to sell an idea, sell a dream.
So this is where I don't 100% disagree with you, but I do disagree with you.
Okay, hit me.
I'm
Come
gonna
on, bring it
I
on.
do think, but here's the thing.
Hmm.
The our event directors, it's true, they have to elevate their conversation internally, where everything that they touch from an events perspective has to do with business strategy, business, or the organization itself,
Hmm.
to a point where, like, you and I have witnessed where we like talk to some suppliers or tech companies that we've spoken to about where
Hmm.
they're going, and their roadmap
Yeah.
is, when we talk to them, we're like trying to elevate them to not be only in the niche that they're in. It sort
Hmm.
of plays with their head a bit because
Yeah.
it's bigger than they think, or they
Hmm.
think they can handle. I think it's the same even for an event planner, where
Hmm.
you want to create bigger events, for example. But the whole idea here is, I wonder if it's not in their superpower toolkit to do the whole sales and the persuasion thing, is
Hmm.
how I think the first thing that they should really rely on is to almost bring a business team together, a team together. Let's call them
Yeah.
a team. And it's them always like collaborating with others that they can do the selling or the promotion internally of this is the strategy and this is the budget that we need together.
I agree. And maybe the skill set that we're thinking about isn't creativity or even collaboration as much as it is negotiation, which planners are great at. I mean, they negotiate everything else. Why don't they, why don't you negotiate the budget as it fits in with the business strategy and the event strategy and any other kind of strategy? But that
And I
proves my point. There has to be a strategy in order to negotiate against.
so you're always strategizing, even strategizing how to negotiate the budget.
There's got to be an outline. There has to be a framework to maneuver within. I
Yeah.
just think the budget has got to, eventually fit the strategy, fit the plan, fit the outline, fit the
I mean,
reason for
I
being.
would be interested to hear what like Jill has to say and Marin have to say on this topic. You know,
Mhm.
we always hear this that saying, uh, what is it? Beer and champagne, something, beer on a champagne budget, or like something something. Am I getting it? I'm too Egyptian for this.
Yeah, you have a champagne taste on a beer budget.
There you go. That whole thing. And sometimes you actually
Mhm.
going into an event and all of a sudden you look around and you're like, wait, what happened? You know, it looks
Mhm.
like it wasn't spent. There was not money spent on it. And it also has to do with certain elements right now, especially about, you know, talk about your setup fee, your catering, your production, your AV, for example, hidden costs
Mhm.
from the hotel or sourcing problems, etc. And a lot of times, I think that budgets are also unrealistic in the way where, and it's going to hit hard, I think, this year and next year,
Mhm.
where sponsorship dollars are not going to be the same.
Yeah.
And so, if you do not get the budget you want, and if you do not get that pot of gold that you're going to say, oh, I'm going to do the champagne event,
Hmm. Yeah.
what then how do you tweak the strategy?
Yeah. Well, the strategy, I think, still stays the same. A strategy shouldn't be, I want an event, any event, I don't care what kind of event, as long as it looks like champagne, and you only pay for beer. That's not a strategy. A strategy is, we're going out there for a specific bundle of objectives, and how you execute can change. I mean, and I'm not saying that the strategy is unwavering. It can be broad, but
Mm-hmm.
not so broad that at the end of the day, you're like, why did we just do this? What was the point of this? And I think you've gone to events where it's kind of like, what is the point of this? Like, what are they after? And why are they doing it this way? It's like a big question mark. Those are the events I think that aren't sustainable.
So Barbara's comment. Hi, Barbara. Sponsors will love to hear there's a strategy framing an event. It's not just asking them to be your ATM and pay for champagne. Point taken.
Thank you, Barbara.
So question then is, do you share your strategy with stakeholders?
Absolutely. That's
Have
where the
you seen any
collaboration.
recent events, especially from our association events, that have shared their strategy with us as sponsors or attendees or speakers or
No.
participants? Mhm.
But I did once, when I was writing for a particular association, ask for the strategy and they gave it to me. So
Okay.
maybe we're not asking the right questions. And then it kind of made a lot more sense, because then you know what you're driving toward. I mean, strategy is like the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. It's the directional piece that you need for anything. So maybe planners if there is a strategy and they weren't privy to
That's
the, the creation of the strategy, you better be asking, like, what,
So
what am
that's
I,
what
what
Jill,
am I doing here?
you and Jill, like you and Jill are like on the same
So,
page.
of
Like,
course.
uh-huh.
Hmm.
So
Great
Jill says,
minds.
yeah, I think too many times planners receive a strategy without being part of creating it. So then
Hmm.
what happens? Like Jill, share with us what happens. Do you go back to those that created it and tell them, especially if the budget does not match the strategy that they have handed over to you? And now
Hmm.
with the with consultants and third party meeting management companies coming in, et cetera, and the challenge here is they come in after the fact. So
Hmm.
strategy might have been done last October. Budget might have been attempted last October and then not confirmed until Q1 the following year or something like that. And so this is where in everybody's best interest is make it almost like a group effort, right? On
Right.
both sides, the budget and the strategy.
That is true. But despite a lot of best efforts on everyone's part, there can be shitty strategies,
True.
handed down that said, I want this. And planners are going to look at it and go, you can't have this. There's no way you can have this. It's not going to happen. I can't do this. And then they're under pressure.
Mm-hmm.
That happens. I mean, I'm advocating for there being a strategy, but I'm not saying it's always good or doable. I mean, I think it's hard, but the onus is on planners to push back, like say, I don't think I can do this, and I
Well,
think
I
that's
don't
really
think
hard.
this is
But
only a
here's what I can do. I mean, don't
right.
just say no. Just I can't do this, but I could do this. What do you
So
think?
this is where I actually see it as a challenge, not even only for planners, not even only
Mhm.
for events. I see it also on the supplier side. I
Yeah.
see it also with tech companies. There are
Hmm.
some tech companies that I've had conversations with. Their budgets were never confirmed, were never like approved, and that this sets like almost like a domino effect of I'm just going to go with and wing it.
Hmm.
Let me go wing. I need a marketing strategy. I need to get like I don't know how many leads, etc. But then they wing it. They're like, oh, I'll go to this event or I go to this event and so forth. But it's not a very comprehensive way of doing business, to be honest. And so it always comes down to, so why are you doing it or why are you not doing it? And it's a budget question. I don't have it in the budget, or like I had some money left over.
Hmm. Yeah. I don't know. I think on the tech side, on the supplier side, it's becoming ever more difficult to orchestrate the organic tools that are left. When you don't have budget, then you got to go guerrilla, or you have
Mhm.
to use organic,
Which is not a bad
something like that.
thing if it's part of the strategy.
But there's so many, it's just becoming so watered down. And I'm thinking specifically of social media.
Yeah.
That is becoming a really difficult channel to navigate and get results organically. You have to be really on top of your game to go that direction. And maybe at the end of the day, some of these companies are only left with a shrinking box of tools in order to, get what they want for less money. And maybe it's not even possible anymore. I don't know. What do you think about that? They can have great plans and a great strategy, but there just aren't the mechanisms that there used to be to to meet those strategic goals.
Well, and it could also be that that's the case when you have the same people doing the strategy year over year,
Mm. Hmm.
because that comfort zone is intense,
Yeah.
especially when everything around you is uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So the idea of the strategy as well as the budget, you need, if anybody's going to be using the word innovation, they really should not be using it when it comes to technology. They should be using it in how innovative are you in revamping, redesigning a strategy and a budget, and how creative or innovative you are in bringing in new revenue streams to help that shrinking budget, or to help a budget that you have the same template year over year, because it's not realistic anymore.
Maybe the concept of strategy and the concept of budget should be more like frameworks that are changeable on both sides. And maybe that's where AI comes in. It's like, if this, then that, right?
Yeah.
You know, I've got this sort of basic idea that I'm starting out with, but then the whole world goes to hell in a handbasket and the P and the C come, and I can't do the strategy that way, but I could do it this way. So maybe they are loose frameworks, both sides, strategy, expense, and we have to learn to live in a world that is constantly changing, and that's just the way it's going to be.
And it's always been that way.
Not to the dramatic extent that it is now. I mean, every day is like a new ball game, I think. Maybe it's just me.
It has always been that way, but our comfort zone has always been in just something that is set. And I think this is where, I mean, even Marin was saying, you know, you should always be very agile with strategy as well as budget. And you know, that is a power, I would say, or it's not in the comfort zone.
Yeah.
It really isn't in the comfort zone. Thinking outside of the budget lines, thinking outside of like, okay, maybe I can add on one element, like Marin was saying, and it will bring me this much revenue, and then this would, you know, feed something else that we didn't have budget for example. But like right now in the world that we're in, there's so much unknown. Like, even if you have your hotel contracts, even if you have your AV, your production, all of that. And I think sponsorship dollars are going to be challenged tremendously. I think attendance is going to be challenged tremendously. And I also think that the strategy, especially for events, maybe it needs to be broadened. Like, it can't be one strategy and one budget for one conference, meaning it might have to be across different touch points, across different events. So maybe pooling it together so that you have more, you're going to have more to strategize for, but you're going to have maybe more flexible budget for different things. So there, like, I'll tell you, there was one client that we did virtual production for, and all the sponsors and all the content, all the sponsor revenue was for those virtual events. Then when we offered and we said, well, this is how you can do revenue on content, this was like a couple of years ago. They're like, oh, we can't touch that as an asset because that belongs to a different department and a different budget.
Right.
I'm like, wait, hang on. It's left pocket, right pocket, same pair of pants. Right? Like, if you're trying to expand where the monies are coming from, being creative on like what you can have within your event, what assets you can have, not only within the event, but across different assets, then, then you have a bigger budget.
Yeah.
You have bigger revenue streams and more creativity.
I don't know. From what I know about what happens inside most enterprises, and that comes from working for agencies and seeing how they manage budgets for the stuff that agencies do for them, I think it's a dream. I don't think that they're still very
I want the dream to
siloed.
come true, damn it.
I know, but you're asking for, something that is really difficult because each business unit is very protective of their budget because that's their lifeline. So you need a really good leader to say, all right, kids, we're gonna collaborate and share budgets and ideas and whatever, and it just doesn't happen.
Well, this is where I think that the whole idea of events and anything attached to it should
Mm-hmm.
become part of, or like, the business strategy.
Yeah.
Because then the leap
Mm-hmm.
is smaller, for
Mm-hmm.
example. But like, to Jill, what Jill was saying, it's always been that way. We have less time, tighter deadlines, and slower signups. Guess what would happen if all of a sudden we're like, well, we can't work with this runway, this timeline that you have. We're
Mm-hmm.
going to have to work on a different timeline. Like, if everybody does pause and say, we're not going to create an event on this strategy with this timeline and this budget, then what's going to happen?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what's going to
Less,
happen is they're going to lay you off. It's like, if you can't meet my demands, then
I
I'll
was
bring
going to
in
say,
someone that can.
less mental challenges and anxiety would happen as well. So
Just having this discussion, I kid you not, my stomach is in a knot.
that's
I
not
just
what I
feel, I'm
meant.
like feeling what
So,
every
but we
planner and
have,
every supplier is feeling right now. There's tremendous anxiety. No wonder everyone's depressed, you know?
Mohammed says, agree with Michelle on change more so than ever before. It feels like the impact of global and local events have a higher impact on everything. Agility and ability to pivot is more of a necessity now to survive than ever before. And spot on. Even though I do not like the word pivot, but that's okay. For you, Muhammad, I'll let it pass.
I mean, it's okay to pivot within a really good strategy. But if you're pivoting, meaning like every day is, a new set of parameters and new ideas and whatever, and everything we talked about yesterday is out the window, okay, I can't. I cannot. I've
All
got to
right.
have some
So, real
stability.
quick before we end this, what's in a good strategy? Three things.
Ah, a good strategy. Oh man, you caught me off guard.
Yep.
Well, I think that the framework for the strategy has to be able to accommodate flexibility. So part of a strategy has to be the idea that you are, with this strategy, going to accomplish specific goals in these categories. And I'm thinking more about messaging. So I use pillars, you know, of the strategy, so that within a pillar, these things are going to be discussed. These things are going to be, we're going to strive for these kinds of objectives within a category, and then move to the next category. So I think a good strategy has a common structure from strategy to strategy, from project to project. Um, Number two is, I think it you just have to take in as much information as you possibly can, but not get freaked out that there's so much information. You have to really be able to connect the dots and still stay in line with the goal that you're going for. And number three, it has to be something that you can actually execute on. It
Mm,
can't just be a big dream in the sky. It has to be something that, you can put down. It's a living, working document, or a living, working set of principles, but it's executable. I mean, just off the top of my head, that's what I would say. Does that work for you in terms
yeah,
of a strategy?
I think it definitely works for me. The I think the strategy also needs to be more laser focused on
Mm-hmm.
the stakeholders,
Mm-hmm.
and especially new stakeholders, as well as what they really want, whether it's from an event or whether it's from, the marketing campaigns that you put together, or your presence at an event if you're a supplier, etc., as an exhibitor, all of that. Whatever strategy you're working on, it
Mm-hmm.
has to be super clear what the stakeholder goals are.
Yeah.
And I think one thing is, for the budget, it does have to be very flexible, in the sense of, it has to work with what do you have in play and what is not in play. And it
Mm-hmm.
also has to be flexible and the team around it has to be flexible in regards to creativity.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, for example, I think, in my opinion, for events, AV, the food and beverage, and even the production is going to be three things that are going to be always not critiqued, but looked at in a different way
Mm-hmm.
within an event. So I would imagine that there would need to be more budget allocated to experiences within the event,
Mm-hmm.
and the way we set up food and beverage and ugly coffee and really blah blah yucky snacks and stuff like that should disappear.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you're saying is, and I believe this, a good strategy is like a litmus test for everything you do,
Yep.
or what you spend, for how you do it. I mean, if you can go back and say, should I do this? And look at the strategy and says, strategy says yes, it's a good strategy and it's probably a good thing to do. That, or your strategy is crap. I mean, I'm not saying that it shouldn't be tweaked, but it's a guidebook,
Yeah, for sure.
and you need
So
that.
I believe that there should be a guidebook. I also think that, the whole idea of having a budget and a strategy is a collective effort, should
Mm-hmm.
not be owned by just one person, especially
Mm-hmm.
in the events department. And I do think it needs to be a business strategy. And even naming it as a business strategy already changes the way you think of it.
Mm-hmm.
So this was good.
Because most event strategies are not business strategies.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for joining us on this special session of chicken or egg, which comes first, strategy and budget. And I guess they both go hand in hand. So we agree on that in a way.
Yeah.
Join us for next week. And we have a special guest, Adam Perry, with Event Industry News and Event Tech Live. And he's going to be sharing with us what ETL Vegas is going to be all about. We're going to ask him some hard questions because that's what we do. Mm-hmm. And also, he's going to be sharing one of the reports that he just published and asking him hard questions about that as well. So, Bruno, I hope you have a wonderful Thursday and a wonderful weekend. And we'll see everybody next week.
Mm-hmm.
Take care, everyone.